So then guys, here it is, the brand new 14-inch MacBook Pro with an M5 chip in it. And I've gone for the silver version this time round. This is my initial unboxing review, so my first hands-on impressions and a few early benchmark comparisons with the last year's M4 MacBook Pro. But what I will say is a full deep dive review is coming soon that will include, say, more export testing, more thermal readings and throttling, and also testing out, say, the battery life a little bit longer. But for now, let's get into what's new. So starting up, the main big change is all to do with the main chip in here, the M5. Apple claiming up to 20% faster CPU performance. And they're also telling us we're getting 1.6 times faster graphics, 2 times faster NAND speeds, and still an insane 24-hour battery life, all inside the same familiar body. So let's check this out. And first up, let's have a look then at the design and build quality. Now, visually, not much has changed, and that's not a bad thing, I would say here for the baseline M5. The all aluminum or aluminium chassis still feels solid and premium, especially in the silver finish. You still get the same great port selection, so you get MagSafe 3, HDMI and SD card slot, and also 3 Thunderbolt 4 ports. And it looks like that Apple have clearly decided if it isn't broken, don't fix it. And looking ahead, Apple's next big MacBook redesign is expected around the end of 2026 or even into early 2027, featuring an OLED display and slimmer bezels and probably a slightly slimmer design too. But if history repeats itself, the standard M6 and M7 models will likely keep this design that we are seeing right here. Do remember that in the past, Apple have done this. When we got the M1 and the M2 standard MacBook Pro, it kept the old design from the Intel version. It was only the M1 Pro, the M2 Pro, the M1 Max, the M2 Max only got the new design. It wasn't until we got to the M3 series that they decided to update the baseline version. And I've got a feeling that history may repeat itself again. But next up then, display and sound. The display is as always stunning as it has been since it's come out. You've got the 14.2-inch Liquid Retina XDR panel here with up to 1,600 nits of peak HDR brightness or 1,000 nits sustained brightness there. So that is really amazing. And you've also got Pro Motion up to 120 Hertz. This can also scale down too, what is great. And everything just feels buttery smooth here, just whizzing around, say, Apple's website. Then we've also still got a 6-speaker setup here, and it still sounds incredible, deep bass, crisp mids, and one of the richest sound profiles on any laptop out there. Have a listen to this sample here compared to the M4 MacBook Pro. So yeah, really the same, I would say. And talk about things staying exactly the same. Well, the webcam hasn't changed either. It's still the same 1080p FaceTime HD camera, which looks fine, but is due for an update soon. It may even get that new 18 megapixel one that we got like in the new iPhones in the near future. But we get the idea here, it is the same body that we've had before. But let's move on to performance, because this is where the big story begins. The M5 chips brings Apple's next generation architecture, a 10-core GPU with a neural accelerator built into each GPU core, an upgraded 16-core neural engine, and faster memory bandwidth of up to 153 gigabits per second, up from the 120 gigabits per second we had on the M4. And with that, I've decided to do some initial benchmarks for you guys. So first of all, I've done GeekBench 6. So I've done things like the single core, the multi-core, and also the metal-core score. So let's have a look then at the graph then for the single core performance. And we can see the M5 scores 4,161 comfortably ahead of the M4's 3,784. What is really impressive to see right here. And it's even above the M4 Pro at 3,824. So Apple's still leading the world for single core performance, no question here, every single year. But next, now let's look at GeekBench multi-core score and look at this chart right here. The M5 scores 17,787, while the M4 comes in at around about 14,637. That's about a 22% boost what we've got here. And that is wild because even if you look at this chart right here, the M5 is just behind the M1 Ultra. And do remember that the M1 Ultra in the Mac Studio, when that came out, that cost us $4,000, and that was even the bin down version. It didn't come with a screen, it was just the box on its own. So this is amazing what we are getting here with an M5 chip now inside of a MacBook Pro. But then next of all, the last GeekBench score that I did was the GPU Metal. And let's have a look at the chart right here. And we can see that the M5 hits 76,792 compared to the M4's 57,085. That's roughly around about a 34% increase in GPU power, helped by that new dynamic caching and smarter AI acceleration. But next, let's look at some other kind of benchmarks. Let's now do Cinebench 2024, what I ran on the M4 and also the M5 MacBook Pro. And in single core, the M5 reaches 1,070, up from the M4's 987. And then flicking over to the multi-core chart here, it climbs up to 1,135 compared to 987, again from the M4. About a 15% faster speed overall. And for sustained CPU heavy workloads, that is a nice bump up in speed that we've got right here. But next of all, let's go back to some more GPU sort of bits and pieces. Let's do some real world kind of testing now. Let's look at Blender and let's run the BMW benchmark in this. Now the M5 completed this render in 77 seconds, while the M4 took 90 seconds. And just have a look here on the chart, you can even see that in the past the M3 took around about 101 seconds. So that is a solid 15% speed up again, showing off those GPU and memory improvements that we've got here in Blender. And one thing I'll also throw in there is also the actual fans didn't spin up whatsoever to do this. So just doing like a 1 minute or so, just over 1 minute kind of render there, it keeps everything nice and cool. So that's really good news to hear. But next of all, what about gaming? Apple's made the point to show off gaming performance this year. And even though there's only like about probably 5 games that you can actually play on the Mac, the point is one of those games is CyberPunk 2077. And I did a built-in benchmark running at 1080p. And again, looking at a chart right here, the M4 managed to get around about 50 frames per second, but the new M5 hit roughly 81 frames per second. That is about a 60% jump in performance. And at the end of the day, this is not a gaming laptop. And I would also say with this, the size of the screen, you probably wouldn't even need that to be running at 4K here. But that is really impressive that we can play 1080p gaming on here on the baseline M5 of the likes of the MacBook Pro. And yet we can still get over 60 frames per second just all the time. This is really great news to actually hear this. But next of all, let's talk about thermals. And do remember the M5 chip is the 3rd generation 3nm chip that's been made with Apple and TSMC. So let's see if this runs a little bit hotter or cooler. Let's take a look here. So what we've actually got first of all is the M5 MacBook Pro. And on my heat thermal camera, you can see that white crosshair, that reading is where I'm pointing it, and you can see that's about 41 degrees Celsius. So for 90% of the world, that's easy enough to follow, but if you're one of our lovely American friends out there, that's about 106 degrees Fahrenheit. But now switching over to the M4 MacBook Pro with the white crosshair again, it's reading around about 43 degrees Celsius, which for our US audience, that's 111 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's very close, and it is still early days still, I'm going to say here, but it does look like potentially the M5 in its new way it's being built here, it does seem to be running slightly cooler. Maybe there's a new fan inside. I haven't done a teardown obviously or anything like that. Or it could just literally be silicon lottery and luck here, I don't know. Or it could be that the M5 is running slightly cooler here. So we'll have to wait and see, like I said, early days. But next of all is storage, and this is one of the biggest changes. Apple have claimed that their storage is 2 times as fast as the previous generation. So what I've done is I've decided to run Blackmagic disk speed test on the M4, then the M5, and let's have a look then at this chart right here. And you can see on the M4 MacBook Pro, we're seeing around about 2,967 megabytes read and 3,056 megabytes write. And the M5, this is correct here, with say read speeds of near 7,000, what is crazy. And the write speeds, as you can see right here, are also super fast too. Now you're going to say, wow, Apple have done something absolutely amazing here. What kind of witchcraft are they doing here? Well, I've got something to tell you, and it's quite simple if you are a bit of a tech nerd. What we've actually done is we've gone from a PCIe Gen 3 bus controlling the NAND chips to the Gen 4 bus controller instead. So it's the next generation. Now here's what that means essentially. The PCIe Gen 3 provides up to 16 gigabits per second bandwidth across 16 lanes. And that is why we can get, say, about 3,500 megabytes per second sort of read sort of kind of speeds out there. But with PCIe Gen 4, that doubles those lanes up. So we now get up to 32 gigabits per second. So this allows read speeds of up to about, say, 7,000 megabytes or more, depending on the configuration. So really what all Apple done is just gone to the next generation. So it's just the way how the NAND chips are being used with that is why we're getting that faster speed increase. And to be deadly honest, personally, I think they should have gone up to PCIe 4 a long time ago, because it's been out a good while now. So like I said, it's great that it's finally here, but don't think that Apple have pulled, you know, the rabbit out of the magic hat here and doing something extra special. All they've just literally done is just upgraded it to PCIe Gen 4. But don't get me wrong, in the real world use, that is going to be super handy, say with Final Cut Pro exports, project loads, and large app installs, and LLMs and things like this. It's really, really going to help out. And something else that Apple have also changed this time is also the memory bandwidth. The M5 does keep the same configuration of 16 gigabyte base, and you can go up to 32 gigabytes max, but the difference is how fast you can actually read that RAM. We could used to do it at 120 gigabits per second. It is now 153 gigabits per second. So this is even faster, and this is definitely also helping out here, especially with all the kind of benchmarks that we have done. That has definitely been helping out the situation. But next of all is battery life and charging. And the great thing is, with all these speed increases and everything like that, Apple still claim the same 24-hour battery life on a single charge like the M4. So this is really, really great. And this is a laptop leading in its class for this. And if you need a top up as well, if you decide to go out and buy yourself a 96-watt charger, you can get up to 50% in just 30 minutes. And talk about chargers, if you're in Europe or the UK like me, you don't get a charger in the box anymore now. But in the US, you still do. But I wonder how long that will last. So with that then, let's come to the conclusion then, and my first initial thoughts. I'm going to say this, if you're an M1 or M2 or one of those Intel MacBooks out there still, then I would actually say this is definitely worth the upgrade. So even like say an M1 or an M2 MacBook Pro, that's the older design. for example. So you'd get this design here and you would get a massive boost up in performance there. You will notice CPU and GPU performance is leaps and bounds ahead. The NAND speed, you know, it's on PCIe Gen 4, that is better. Battery life is going to be amazing too. You're going to get a better screen, you're going to get all those extra ports. It is definitely worth the upgrade in my opinion. And then if you've come here from, say, an M3 MacBook Pro, well, it's your choice, I'm going to say here. You're going to get the exact same design. You're going to get one more Thunderbolt port, what will be cool, but really it's not going to be a big upgrade. You're not going to see too much of a difference. And if you're coming here from an M4 MacBook Pro, I don't even know why you're here, to be honest. Just stick with your M4 MacBook Pro. I would say it's not worth upgrading for it, unless there's a way how you can do an insurance claim of destroying your M4 MacBook Pro and somehow get a free M5 one. There is no point here moving up. But what I would also say, what is also really amazing with this M5, do you remember that chart I showed you back here with the GeekBench multi-core? Again, I'll show it. You can see how close the M5 is now in multi-core performance to the M1 Ultra. And I'm going to say that with the M6 MacBook Pro, that it will probably be able to overtake the M1 Ultra, what will be absolutely amazing on less cores too. And also remember that in 2026, we are probably going to be getting a new design MacBook Pro, or even early 2027. But like I said, I have a feeling that this baseline MacBook Pro probably will not get an update for that design. I still do think it will just be the Pro and the Max chips that will get that update for it. So yeah, just be aware of that design might be sticking around for the baseline for another generation or two. But there we have it then, guys. Like I said, this is my initial review. I am going to do kind of more reviews for you guys with this. I do hope to do kind of a few more games with this too. I'm also going to check out thermals and throttling in the next video as well. And then also we'll check out battery life to see if it really is better or worse than, say, an M4 or almost on par. So yeah, we will check that out in the near future. But on that note as well, guys, what do you think of the M5 MacBook Pro? Do you think it's a great machine, or do you think it's just worth cutting out and skipping out altogether? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And on that note as well, guys, it's time to wrap up the video too. So if you have enjoyed watching it, please do press the like button. As always, when you hear the latest Apple news, reviews and comparisons, make sure you subscribe to this channel and also hit that notification bell. Until next time, guys, I'll see you really soon. Take care. Bye bye.